These giants were alive just 300 years ago. In the last 300 years, we've lost at least 13 large animals, all heavier than 100 pounds, and in some cases far heavier than that. Let's get into it. Body the tortoise massacre. Sadly, these lost giants were quite a diverse bunch, but there's one group that suffered more than the rest: tortoises. Most people don't think of tortoises as large, but historically some of them were absolute whoppers. Even now you can find giant tortoises on islands weighing close to 1,000 pounds, heavier than your average grizzly bear. But in the last 300 years, we lost 5 species of giant tortoises. That's over 38% of every lost megafauna since the 1700s. The saddleback Rodriguez and Mauritius giant tortoises, the domed Mauritius and Rodriguez species, and the Reunion giant tortoise. All 5 were herbivorous island dwellers in the Indian Ocean, all descended from the same, not too distant ancestor. Their weights differed, but we're not sure by how much due to limited remains. The saddleback Rodriguez was by far the most exotic looking. It had a shell that tightly fit its body and an extremely long neck used to graze taller plants. Almost prehistoric in appearance, must have shocked people when they first saw it. Arabic and Portuguese sailors saw them first, but it wasn't until the French and Dutch colonized these islands in the 17th century that we see them in official records. And all 5 fell into the fatal trap of extinct island animals. They were noted as docile, friendly, and not scared of humans, having never seen them before or evolved with similar species. This proved terrible for them. Their large sizes and slow speeds made them easy targets for starving sailors. Once permanent settlements were established, they were used for fat and oil on top of food. And despite their odd appearances, giant tortoises were documented as having surprisingly tasty flesh and eggs, easy to digest too, unfortunately for them. To make matters worse, these tortoises congregated in large herds at various times of day, which only led to more death. The hunting alone devastated their numbers, but what really broke the camel's back, or the tortoise's shell, was invasive animals. Pigs, dogs, cats, goats, rabbits, all brought to these islands, causing immense damage through predation and habitat destruction. Hundreds of thousands more were loaded onto ships for food during sea voyages. With such pressure, it didn't take long for these guys to start dropping. By the 18th century, all 5 were on the verge of extinction. By the early 19th century, they were either extinct or limited to remote areas. Even there, invasive animals found them. Controlled fires meant to clear forests didn't help either. The last sighting of an Indian Ocean giant tortoise, besides the living Aldabra species, was in 1844 on Round Island north of Mauritius. Several large specimens found alive, but that island was already overrun by rabbits, and I'm not joking. By the time someone checked back over 20 years later, they were long gone. The Caribbean monk seal. The age of sail was a travesty for many large animals, including our next victim, the Caribbean monk seal. This creature's first recorded appearance was during Christopher Columbus's second voyage in 1494. His ship anchored off an island where a search party discovered a group of these seals on the beach. They were noted for fairly large, sturdy bodies, some measuring up to 2.4 meters or 8 feet long. Like other monk seals, they had algae growing on their fur, giving them a slight greenish tinge. Having never seen humans, they didn't react heavily, which was a mistake. The sailors killed 8 of them for food and study. Large males could weigh up to 270 kilos or 600 pounds. In sailor terms, a lot of meat. They became a favorite hunting target as more ships passed through. They were largely social animals, sticking to groups between 20 to 100 strong throughout the Caribbean Sea, Gulf of Mexico, and Western Atlantic Ocean. Areas with warm waters where they fed on fish and crustaceans, great whites, tiger sharks, occasional orcas, and native Caribbeans preyed on them, but none made a real dent. The newcomers, though, that was a different story. Over time, as the Caribbean was colonized, the monk seal became a commodity. Hundreds killed daily for plantation machinery lubrication, hundreds more to fuel lamps. These killings ramped up after the 1500s into the late 1600s. Less than 400 years after discovery in 1850, it was written that enough Caribbean monks had died, they were no longer commercially viable to hunt. This took some pressure off, but the damage was done. They were still killed or captured for research or zoos. One expedition alone took 42 of them. In captivity, these animals rarely lived long. In nature, they could live to 20. As the years passed, they got fewer. Once the 1900s hit, sightings were once in a lifetime. The last seal spotted in Texas occurred in 1932. The last recorded one killed by a person was in 1939. Then, in 1952, the last one ever seen alive was spotted off Saranilla Bank. Since then, while sightings have been reported, follow-ups never revealed their existence. The consensus being, these sightings are really hooded seals. The Japanese sea lion. On the other side of the planet, another loss took place. What used to be Japan's largest land animal, the Japanese sea lion. This creature has one of the longest recorded histories. Humans permanently inhabited Japan as far back as 40,000 years ago. In its glory days, the Japanese sea lion could be found in the western North Pacific, with hotspots being the Japanese archipelago and Korean peninsula. They were somewhat large, with the biggest measuring up to 2.5 meters long. In some cases, weighing 560 kilos or 1,230 pounds. For comparison, the largest native animal in Japan today is the Ussuri brown bear found in Hokkaido, topping out around 500 kilos. With its large yet graceful build and sharp teeth designed to pierce and grip, the Japanese sea lion was a successful fisher. It caught fish, squid, octopus, and even lamprey, despite being an imposing predator that didn't save it. Hunting was recorded as far back as the Jomon period, dating to 14,000 BC. But at that point, hunting was sustainable. The problematic relationship only started around the 18th century when oil lamps were introduced. And what do oil lamps need? Oil. And where's the perfect place to get oil? Fatty animals. Yeah, the rest is history. Sea lions hunted for this resource. Hunting for food was rare due to reported bad taste. As Japan's population grew, they were killed for medicinal purposes. Their whiskers and skin used as pipe cleaners and leather goods. Another huge hit was industrial fishing. Fishermen saw them as competition and a threat to their livelihood. By the time the 1900s rolled in, 3,000 were harvested in 1 year alone. Extremely problematic when they were already rare. The damage showed quickly. In 1915, harvesting fell to 300 down from 3,000, yet no effort was made to protect them. Killing continued. Just 15 years later, in 1930, the number dropped to a few dozen. You'd think someone would say, hey, this isn't good. But no. Harvesting continued another decade, only ceased in the 1940s, once virtually extinct. World War II came, causing large-scale habitat damage. By that point, the Japanese sea lion was a dead species swimming. The last confirmed sighting was a juvenile captured near Rebben Island in 1974. Since then, nothing. Steller's sea cow, the largest animal we've lost in the last 300 years by a massive margin. Steller's sea cow, not a pinniped but a marine mammal, a sirenian, a dugong, an absolutely giant one. Based on fossils, it's believed to be a relatively recent animal appearing in the Pleistocene in the Bering Strait, as well as northern Japan and western North America. Glacial cycles restricted their range, leading to them only being found in the Bering Sea. European explorers encountered them in 1741. This discovery was random luck for explorers and terrible for the sea cow. The boat Steller was on sank off Bering Island. Starving and cold, the group stumbled upon multiple giant animals grouped near shore. They tried to kill one, failed due to immense size and thick blubber. Next day, they succeeded. Steller noted the meat as tasty and plentiful, very plentiful. Sea cows were absolute giants. Steller claimed they were between 8 meters or 30 feet long as adults, weighing between 8 and 10 tons, possibly more. Comparable to a literal elephant, one of the largest animals to have lived during the entire Holocene. The crew was stranded for months, allowing Steller to make observations. They stuck together in herds, fed on large amounts of kelp in shallow water, moved very slowly, making them easy to capture. Steller noted them as highly docile and peaceful, with small heads and thick skin to prevent injury from rocks and ice. When reports reached Russia, they became a sought-after target, food supply seen as vital, their fat treated as valuable commodity, swiftly killed in large numbers. Prior to meeting Europeans, indigenous North American groups hunted them in large numbers too. Might have led to extinction in some places already. Combined with glacial cycles, there were as few as 2,000 sea cows when Steller found them. It was only 27 years after discovery they were declared extinct, just like that. Yet reports of prolonged survival exist. One American ethnologist reported natives on Attu Island seen sea cows into the 1800s. In 1963, a whaling ship crew reportedly saw saw large marine mammals grazing on seaweed in shallow water fitting the description. Attempts to track them failed. For now, they're considered long gone.